Hello and welcome to a Football Friday Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination and consume everything all across the grid. He is Joe Raineri. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time to preview a Sunday slate in week number 11 around the National Football League that might rival the best weekend we have seen all year long. Marquee matchups, significant results as we are near the end of November, very much in that playoff hunt. It started on a Thursday night in Philadelphia with an NFC East battle for the top spot in the division that we will recap between the Eagles and the Commanders in just a few moments. It is night number 2, Joe, of the Emirates NBA Cup in 2024, the second annual in-season competition around the association. 12 games on this Friday of NBA Cup action that we will break down. It is the third to final weekend of the college football regular season in 2024, and a huge Friday night slate in college hoops as well. All of that, if you need it anymore, over these 3 hours on a Football Friday on the early line.
I am all for it here, Ben. It's going to be a huge week in college football. The NFL already delivering last night, mixing the NBA Cup. And, let's not forget college hoops as well. The first big weekend coming up. So I'm all for this. Let's get it.
Perhaps the single best day of this young year so far in the 2024-25 college basketball season is tonight. But let's start by looking back to a Thursday night in the city of brotherly love and a battle for the top spot in the NFC East between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. The Eagles entered 7-2, a half game in front in that first place position of the Washington Commanders at 7-3. Some late steam booked the Eagles as a 4.5-point home favorite, but it was the Commanders taking an early lead and in to the halftime locker room as well before Philadelphia bounces back in the second half, and namely Saquon Barkley explodes in the fourth quarter in the final 5 minutes. 2 touchdown runs of more than 25 yards in a 20-second span of game clock to push Philadelphia ahead for good. 26-18, the victory for the Eagles. The Birds have now won 6 games in a row. They cover as a 4.5-point home favorite. They've covered in 4 of these 6 consecutive victories. And, Joe, a total of 49.5 because of the slow start offensively for both sides does stay under.
Yeah, and we talked about that game on Tuesday, Ben, and I thought the opening number of that 49.5 was a little excessive given the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles love to run the ball and love to milk the clock and love to wear down defenses. And, Ben, they did every single one of those things last night in that game, especially in the second half where Mr. Barkley took over and won the game for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes, he certainly did. We'll talk more about Saquon's night, but nearly $150 on the ground, 2 rushing scores, and as he always is, involved in a passing attack for Philadelphia as well. And that defense under Vic Fangio in his first year in Philly is looking really good as of late. So week 11 off to a great start in the NFL. One of the marquee matchups that we have last night, well, it also continues into Sunday, and perhaps a game of the year awaits in Buffalo between the Bills and the Chiefs. Joe, it's only a 2.5-point spread in favor of the Bills at home in Orchard Park. Around that field goal number, how important might those 3 points be come Sunday? Because the Chiefs have placed their kicker, Harrison Butker, on injured reserve as he deals with a knee injury.
Yeah, and that's fine. Better to do it now. I think 4 games is what they're expecting. And listen, the Chiefs will tell you, yeah, okay, go get better. We need you come December. And January. We're not really concerned with you here in week 11 through 15 of missing any time. So they'll be fine. He was also out in 2022. They want him at the end of December and January, which is when they'll get him back.
The IR at least puts you on the shelf for about 4 weeks, but some big news for this Sunday. The Chiefs are adding Spencer Schrader off the New York Jets practice squad. All right, quickly to the NBA. Only one game. And finally, the Utah Jazz win a game at home, their first home victory in Salt Lake this year. 115-113 outright as an 8.5-point underdog at home against the Dallas Mavericks. Total of 230 does stay under. The Mavs have now dropped 2 in a row. They are 5-7, and Utah gets its first home victory this season.
And Dallas, and the big story here is, yes, congratulations, Utah, but now it's the 4th straight
victory last night. The Pirates now reach that 6th win, bowl eligibility ahead for ECU.
Yeah, no, kudos to them. It was, well, I mean, you know, you can play Tulsa every time. You're guaranteed to get that win there late. But kudos to them. Program has come a long way over the last decade here, Ben. That's for sure.
Yes, they certainly have. Now, some big news for our biggest matchup of the college football weekend. Injury status and uncertainty on both sides going to play a huge factor. We're still not sure about Tennessee's freshman quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, listed as questionable with a concussion. For Georgia, one of their star running backs in a year where it has been difficult for UGA to run the football effectively, Trevor Etienne will not play on Saturday in Athens as Georgia hosts Tennessee. The Bulldogs still remain a 9.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, not great, but he has kind of been on the outside looking in a lot this year. He was in the doghouse, and he did have some injury concerns, and now they're going to have to go without him. That gives Nate Frazier, who is second on the team in rushing, I believe. That's just going to give him more carries, but I think the bigger concern is going to be for Tennessee and whether Nico can go.
For sure. And that is the story of the game. 47.5 is the total, working its way down. Nate Frazier has been Georgia's lead back each of the previous 2 games. Some Major League Baseball news on a Thursday. How about that? The Rays, of course, with all of the destruction to Tropicana Field because of the hurricanes there in South Florida earlier this fall, are unable to play at the Trop. They will now play at the Yankees' spring training home, George Steinbrenner Field, an additional $15 million in revenue headed back to the Pinstripes.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, it's not too far from there. And, you know, when it happened, Ben, during a hurricane, a lot of us were looking at that and going, exactly how did they think they're just going to throw a roof back up on this thing? So it might be a little while for sure.
Yeah, they expect to be able to be there in the 2026 MLB season after the renovations and repair. They'll actually now play in Tampa. The Trop is in St. Petersburg, just an interesting Florida geography distinction. Some MLB awards last night in Las Vegas, not your Cy Young or MVP awards or even Rookie of the Year, but Comeback Players of the Year. Chris Sale headlining that in the National League. Chicago's Garrett Crochet for the White Sox. The Relievers of the Year, Emmanuel Clase, who did struggle in the postseason for the Guardians, and Ryan Helsley of the St. Louis Cardinals in the National League.
Yeah, no, it's and all very well deserving, Ben. It's kudos to them for having an amazing year.
Shohei Ohtani wins his 4th consecutive Edgar Martinez Award for the best designated hitter in MLB. Again, those MVP honors next week. Thursday Night Football. A recap next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was
that's what your
looking down
grandma
and did
does,
not
right?
know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
A huge Thursday night football game to kick off week number 11 of this 2024 NFL season, now firmly in the second half of this campaign. He is Joe Raineri. I am Ben Stevens. We welcome you back to start a Football Friday, live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid. Joe, Thursday night setting the stage for what is going to be a monumental week 11. Huge games across the docket. Every game now, if you are in position to make a run to the postseason, has that added impact. Certainly the case in a battle for the top spot in the NFC East. Supremacy for that first place position on the line. Philadelphia entered with a half-game advantage in front of Washington, and the Eagles a hefty favorite, both in the division and at home on a short week. 4.5 points was that closing spread in favor of the Birds. It was a slow start for Philadelphia, really, for both offenses. But in the second half, and namely the fourth quarter, the ground attack in Saquon Barkley takes over. 2 rushing scores of at least 25 yards or more in a span of 20 seconds of game clock pushes Philadelphia to a huge divisional victory. 26-18. The Eagles take care of business against the Commanders. Philly covers as a 4.5-point home favorite. Total of 49.5 on the rise throughout Thursday. Does stay under that number.
Yeah, and listen, and after that first half and what Elliott was doing, just leaving a ton of points out there, kickers again, and he has been one of the best kickers in the National Football League for a long, long time, but he didn't have a good night at all. Left 6 points on the table, 2 missed field goals, even a missed extra point. But have no fear, Ben. It's funny, we were just talking about Major League Baseball awards. Saquon Barkley would, without a doubt, win the best relief pitcher if he was a Major League Baseball player, because this dude in the second half, 76 of his 146 came in the second half. It's now the second game this year in which he had over 50 rushing yards and multiple touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Nobody else has done it once this season. He has 738 rushing yards, averages 7.2 yards a carry in the second half this season. In the second half. So when Philadelphia's got you on the ropes, you're not getting the ball back, and that's basically how it works. He's the best player on this team by far. And, oh, yeah, by the way, if he was still on the Giants, they'd still suck. You heard it here first.
A decent opening drive for Philadelphia. They did miss a field goal. It was the story of the night. Jake Elliott also missing an extra point when Jalen Hurts scored for the 5th consecutive game. His 9th rushing touchdown in the previous 5 games for Philadelphia, and still was only booked at a minus 120 price to hit Pater yesterday. Saquon Barkley was near a $2 number, minus 180, minus 185. He did that twice in a 20-second span. 23-yard rushing score with just under 5 minutes remaining. That extended the lead for the Eagles, 19-10. Then, very next play for Washington offensively, Jaden Daniels throws an interception. 2 plays later, 20 ticks of the clock can only run off, and Saquon Barkley breaks out for a 39-yard scamper to hit Pater and to give the Eagles the cushion they needed. Jaden Daniels did connect with former Eagle Zach Ertz with about 30 ticks remaining in regulation for what was a rather meaningless touchdown to even make it a single-score game. Philly was in control, courtesy of that huge fourth quarter. And the Eagles now, Joe, have won 6 consecutive games. They have covered 4 times in this 6-game win streak, 3 times as a favorite, and this is where it gets crucial. All 3 covers for Philadelphia as a favorite in this 6-game win streak that pushes their record to 8-2 has come against an NFC East foe. Sure, the Giants and the Cowboys, they stink this year, but the Commanders are the toughest test in this division. Philadelphia will leave Thursday night and Week 11 now with a 1.5 lead in the NFC East.
Yeah, and really they've kind of separated themselves, right? And then you got Washington, who's lost 2 in a row after that 7-2 start. But listen, I think both these teams are still heading to the playoffs, obviously, here. Yep. But I do think Philadelphia in the NFC East, now at 8-2, and the schedule the rest of the way, I think they have. I think they've won the NFC East. I think the race is over, as they say there, Ben. I think now Philadelphia, if you're looking for a future ticket, maybe Philadelphia to win it all is not a bad look here, because they certainly have all the pieces in place to win in January.
Yeah, we will look more at that outlook for both of these teams in just a matter of moments. Both quarterbacks last night can do a little bit of everything. Jalen Hurts had a better game than that of Jaden Daniels, 221 through the air, and Hurts had 39 yards on the ground. Again, his 5th consecutive game with a rushing TD. He's got 9 total rushing scores in this 5-game span. He has scored in 6 of the last 7 for Philadelphia. Jaden Daniels, an interception that was costly in that fourth quarter, 2 plays later, leading to the second score for Saquon Barkley. Jaden Daniels had that historic start to the year. His first 4 games of his career, 70.8% completion percentage or better. The efficiency has dropped off just a little bit here as of late, but still a very bright outlook for a young superstar quarterback. Brian Robinson Jr. back, 63 yards last night, and that opening score. But the story, Joe, as we have shared, simply Saquon Barkley, 28 total touches, nearly 200 scrimmage yards, 198 in those 2 touchdowns in a 20-second window in the fourth quarter. I was looking at Saquon's rushing plus receiving yards prop last night, closed at 113.5. He skies over that number. In 8 of 10 games for the Birds this year, at least 116 scrimmage yards. He is the difference maker for this Philadelphia team, and you can look at a lot of talent on this roster on both sides of the football, but I do believe Saquon Barkley pushes them over the top as that true NFC contender.
Yeah, let's face it. And again, the Giants would still blow if he was on them. So it's amazing what happens. A quality running back like that, Ben, is really that missing piece that a championship caliber team needs. And he is, like Christian McCaffrey, a difference maker.
Yes, he certainly is. We will talk more about the outlook and the race in the NFC East up next here on the Early Line.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We will look at the team outlook for both the Eagles and the Commanders in just a moment. The updated NFC East standings. It is a two-team race, and potentially one team stands atop by a rather large margin. But just quickly back to Saquon Barkley. After his stellar night at home in Philadelphia, nearly 200 scrimmage yards, those 2 total touchdowns in the fourth quarter in a 20-second window. There might be a conversation of who is the most impactful offensive player not named a quarterback around the National Football League. Is it Saquon Barkley? Is it Derrick Henry? Now with Christian McCaffrey back in the fold for San Francisco, who would you select? Joe, the updated Offensive Player of the Year odds are now out. Derrick Henry entered as a minus 140 odds-on favorite here in Week 11. Saquon around a plus 300 price. These numbers tracked by our producer extraordinaire, Joe Frizo. Nobody is tracking the market movement of the Offensive Player of the Year odds quite like him. Derrick Henry now still remains the favorite, even money plus 100, but Saquon back by less than $1 at plus 175.
Yeah, and all solid bets. I mean, there's the only thing you got to worry about, right, of course, is the injury bug with him. But, I mean, call me crazy here, Ben, but this Philadelphia team, it's the style of play also that makes them very interesting down the stretch and maybe worthy of a couple of looks on some future bets here, not only to win the NFC, but, of course, maybe even win it all here. That style, that defense, and with Saquon healthy, yeah, it's a tough team to beat come end of December in the elements into January. I would consider that number now rather than in a couple of weeks where it's probably going to be half of it.
1,137. That is the amount of rushing yards that Saquon Barkley has so far this season. He's got a small advantage, less than 20 yards in front of Derrick Henry. But, of course, the King will play on Sunday in a huge AFC North divisional duel that, much like last night, will dictate the top spot in the division. Saquon at 150-1 to win the NFL MVP award. The last running back to do that now nearly a decade and a half ago, Adrian Peterson in 2012. So the updated outlook, Joe, you've said this now a few times. The Eagles are a true NFC contender. They were minus 240 to win the division entering last night. Home favorite in the first meeting between these two. Nobody else in the division, not the Cowboys, certainly not the Giants, going to make any noise in terms of that title race. After a huge victory last night, minus 550 for the Eagles in the NFC East. These two teams will meet once again, third to final Sunday of the year, week number 16 in Landover. That spread probably going to be around 3, if not a little bit less. but maybe in favor of the Eagles. Joe, when you look at the NFC East and you see that large number in favor of Philadelphia, in your mind, has the NFC East divisional race already been wrapped up?
Well, it's kind of funny, Ben, because by the time they get the second go at them, right, it already could be wrapped up for the Eagles.
Right.
So, the reality is the Eagles kind of are in the driver's seat and control their own destiny. And at that price, at 4-1 to win the NFC, and at just under 10-1 to win it all, Ben, those numbers are only going to get worse from this point on as they rattle off wins here. And the minute they clinch the NFC East, maybe even have an opportunity at home field throughout, which would be huge. Yeah. And one final thing also on Saquon for the MVP. He's the first player to have 4 140-plus yard rushing games in the first 10 games since Sean Alexander did it in 2005. And guess what Sean Alexander won in 2005? The MVP.
That he certainly did. And, Joe, for a large portion of this year, no quarterback was really running away with it. And Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, of course, have the voter fatigue. We shall see in these final 7 weeks of the NFL season. Detroit, by the way, still the favorite in the NFC at plus 195, but the Eagles, the second best price, well in front of the 49ers now by $1.50. In fact, it is the Eagles at a plus 950 number. Now the fifth team at less than 10-1 to win a Lombardi Trophy in New Orleans at Super Bowl 59. Detroit still has the edge at minus 210 to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. Home field advantage, that opening round bye could be crucial. But Philadelphia, 8-2, just a half game behind Detroit right now, who is 8-1. But the Lions, a near 2-touchdown favorite at home against the Jags on Sunday. We'll look at the rest of the NFC postseason picture next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
So, with a huge matchup in the NFC East to kick off week number 11, how does it reshape that playoff picture around the entire conference? As we shared, the Eagles, the second best price to win the NFC, second best number to be the number one overall seed, but greater than a $2 favorite at minus 210 to earn that top spot in the NFC playoff picture. That is the Detroit Lions. 8-1 for Detroit, of course, right now. They have won 7 consecutive games. The Eagles on a 6-game win streak in Detroit, nearly a 2-touchdown home favorite against Mac Jones and the Jags on Sunday. So more than likely going to improve that record to 9-1. The Falcons in pole position of the NFC South, only team above 500 in that division. They might walk to the divisional championship just because of how weak the competition is around Atlanta. The Cardinals, who have won 4 straight games and are at 6-4, still the top team in the NFC West. Now let's get to those wild card positions. A lot of NFC North in the mix. The Vikings at 7-2. The Packers at 6-3, emerging out of the bye in a divisional duel this week on a Sunday at Soldier Field in Chicago. In the Commanders, Joe, based on the loss last night, now 7-4. Of course, they've already played 11 games. That's 2 more at this current moment than both Minnesota and Green Bay. They would be the 7th and final team in the NFC playoff picture, that 3rd and final wild card team. And I do want to start with Washington, because although we have shared Philadelphia favored last night, taking care of business, winning by 8, really in command late in the fourth quarter where it mattered most, and covered as a 4.5-point home favorite. The feeling around the Commanders, Joe, that even if they don't win the NFC East because of how well the Eagles are playing, they're still a playoff team. Minus 800 entering Thursday night and week 11, now minus 550. Yes, the number has taken a big hit, but still a minus 550 price for Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, and the rest of Washington to see the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a tough closing schedule. I think 2 games against, obviously, well, 1 more game against Washington now, plus 1 against the Ravens and the Steelers over the final weeks here. So, but I think they are very live here at this price. And if I was going to look anywhere else down this board, and the Lions are the obvious choice, but no value in them, right? Tell me why we're not betting the 49ers at 5-4 right now at this point, given their history. They're healthiest as they've been, and they have always been a much better second-half team over the years with Shanahan. And it feels like if we're looking anywhere, shouldn't the 49ers be on a ticket somewhere in our pocket?
I would think so, Joe. Plus 550 the price on San Francisco right now, who, like Detroit at this moment, entering week 11, $2 shy of everybody else in the conference. That used to be San Francisco. In fact, it was the 49ers for all of the offseason, into the early part of this regular season. And yeah, it has not been a great start for the Niners, where offensive injuries have been a huge narrative for this team this season. They are now getting healthier. Of course, they won't have Brandon Ayuk for the remainder of this season, but Ricky Pearsall is back and looking darn good with his young quarterback, Brock Purdy. Deebo Samuel is healthy. George Kittle is healthy. And obviously, most importantly, Christian McCaffrey is back. You know what's really fascinating, Joe, about the 49ers? They have been booked as a favorite in every single game since the start of last year. And to start last year, they began a perfect undefeated 5-0. We almost kind of forget, because the Niners ended up reaching the mountaintop and playing in a Super Bowl, that they dropped 3 consecutive games where we all started to question, is Brock Purdy really that guy that Kyle Shanahan needs to elevate this offense? They dropped 3 consecutive games entering their bye. Conveniently, also in week number 9, which is the same bye week this year for San Francisco. And then in week number 10, they started against a team from Florida. They blew out the Jaguars. Of course, it was not easy for the 49ers in Tampa on Sunday, but they beat Jacksonville last year. That began a 6-game win streak, and everybody was like, okay, this is the best team in the NFL, if not just the best team in the NFC. The Niners could be on a similar track. They're a 6.5-point home favorite on Sunday in Santa Clara, by the way, against the Seahawks. And I would just say this. if you're looking for that value outside of the plus 550 number on San Francisco. Now, I have already bet this. It is one of the 2 division tickets that I hold. Philadelphia in the NFC East, in San Francisco in the NFC West. They are still the favorites at plus 105, 35 cents in front of Arizona, despite the fact the Cardinals have the head-to-head tiebreaker advantage at this moment, and, of course, that half-game lead for the top spot.
And keep in mind, those 2 teams meet again, Ben. You ready for this? In Week 18, which could be determining whether you cash that ticket, ironically enough. But I do think between now and Week 18, I do think the Cardinals will probably give away a couple of games, and I think the 49ers will have a cushion heading into Week 18.
So, Joe, when you look at the rest of the NFC playoff picture, are there any other teams currently outside of San Francisco who just belabored that point? Are there any other teams not currently in those top 8 that you would think might be able to make a run? Is there anybody else that still has a little bit of life elsewhere around the NFC?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Bears, right? I can't even say it with a straight face. I'm sorry. The Packers, Ben, seem to be the one team. I mean, I think the projections have them at about a 75% shot of actually making a wild card spot at this point. Given the Lions and the lead that they have here. But listen, the Packers did this last year. They, too, have been battling some injury concerns, especially with Jordan Love. But I like the defense has improved. The offense, for the most part, pretty much exactly what we had last year. I think if they start playing their best football here from this point on, which is what they did last year, the Packers are still a very dangerous team in my mind because I think they have the better defense this year.
Yeah, and they're minus 300 right now to make the postseason. 5.5-point road favorite in the Windy City against Chicago. Will we get the interim bump out of the Bears because of the dismissal of Shane Waldron? Does it count for offensive coordinators? I guess we'll see. I don't really believe there's a lot of belief in anybody else on that coaching staff in Chicago at this moment. I expect the Pack to bounce back emerging out of the bye week. Joe, I think we're starting to see the Vikings come back down to earth a little bit, but because of the perfect undefeated 5-0 start, they're a minus 650 favorite to reach the NFC postseason. Here is one team that I would just highlight that might be able to make a stretch run. Now getting healthier and healthier. A costly loss on Monday night, but the LA Rams, who are at 4-5, they're plus 440 to reach the postseason. They're also plus 900 to win the NFC West. And the reason I highlight the divisional number is because the Rams still have half of their division games left. They're already 2-1 in the NFC West with wins against San Francisco and against Seattle. They did drop a game in week number 2 to Arizona. If they are going to be a playoff team, already a game below 500 after 9 games, then they kind of need to win every game on the horizon to even sniff the wild card because of those NFC North teams that have built up the pedigree. So if they have to win a lot of the games just straight up, and they still have 3 division games left, and they got to get through those teams, maybe you look at the 9-1 NFC West price as a small sprinkle as well.
Yeah, and you have to, and I'll tell you this: if they get healthier, are we just sticking a fork in Tampa Bay? Unless, of course, if they can get their wide receivers back, or at least Evans back in the fold.
Yeah,
I don't trust Atlanta.
No, me neither. And Atlanta has not looked good, and the Falcons are a 2.5-point road dog in Denver this week. That is also crazy. We get ready for a huge Sunday up next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all song. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the that's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when he goes here on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I mean, when you look at the Week 11 Sunday slate, up and down the board you can go and find your favorite matchup, or perhaps the most marquee or the most significant and important game of the NFL Week 11 Sunday slate. But I think first and foremost, Joe, most people go to Western New York in an absolute showdown, a game of the year 3 potential in Orchard Park between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills, 2.5-point home favorite. Total stands at 46.5. Of course, we mentioned the injury to Harrison Butker. He is now on injured reserve. Spencer Schrader, elevated from the Jets practice squad, will be KC's kicker. I highlight that, Joe, just because the spread is around 3, but it's in favor of Buffalo. This will be the second time this year for Kansas City as an underdog. And, Joe, what's remarkable about this game, since the merger way back in 1970, this is only the 5th ever matchup in the NFL since 1970, Week 11 or greater, that features two teams that each have at least 8 wins. Buffalo has won 5 straight games. They are 8-2. Kansas City has won 9 consecutive games. In fact, all 9 of their games, they're the lone undefeated team remaining in the NFL at 9-0. 2.5-point spread in favor of Buffalo, with all of the narratives entering Sunday in Western New York. So, Joe Raineri, tell us here on a Football Friday, will Game of the Year 3 deliver the hype?
I think it will. And I think that Kansas City, at this point, I don't think you need to overthink this. I think Kansas City and every teaser known to mankind should be considered this week to get them up to over 8.5. I just don't, and it would not shock me, and I don't think anybody here should be shocked, as Patrick Mahomes dominates in these spots, guys. He's 12-1-1 against the number as a dog, including the playoffs. He's 11-3 straight up in those games. He's finally on the same page with Travis Kelce, who has been absolutely huge for them. And yes, they have a ton of one-score wins here, and that eventually will come back down to reality. But unless I'm missing something, the Chiefs aren't going to go undefeated. But I think the loss comes from inside the division, Ben. I think the Chargers or Denver in the second go-around might beat them. I don't think it's coming from the Buffalo Bills here. The Bills, and if I'm the Bills, I'm okay with losing this game, Ben, because you've beaten them in the regular season before and had that work out in the playoffs. I think all the value is on Kansas City right now to win this thing. I'd tease them, and I'd money line them all day long this weekend.
11 outright wins in only 14 games is Kansas City's starter as an underdog for Patrick Mahomes. Since 2022, they were not booked as a dog at all in the 2022 NFL campaign. So really, in the last year and a half, Kansas City has been an underdog just 5 times. They have won outright in all 5 of those games, including 3 games on the road or at a neutral site in last year's playoff run. That included a divisional round in Orchard Park against the Bills. And, Joe, as we compare the tale of the tape, of course, this game will be monumental. It has that significant feeling and atmosphere to it. But Josh Allen and the Bills have tried to downplay it, and perhaps correctly so. The Chiefs are the favorites to win the AFC. Plus 185 makes a ton of sense. Buffalo, third best number at 4-1. The Ravens at a plus 290 price, sandwiched in between. The Chiefs, because of the 9-0 start, are a minus 370 favorite to be the AFC's number 1 seed. You're right, Joe. They're not going to stay perfect all year long. They are more than likely not going to be unbeaten at 17-0. Right. But one thing a 9-0 start gives you, even if you can poke some holes in the victory margin that is 9th best in the NFL at just 6.4, Buffalo's victory margin much better than that of Kansas City, despite the 2 losses for the Bills. The 9-0 start pretty much puts Kansas City atop the AFC, where the Chiefs now get to undo what happened to them last year, going on the road for the first time in the AFC postseason, or not hosting the AFC Championship game, because that's where Kansas City has been. And the story of this season for Buffalo is not handing KC its first loss. Heck, it's not even really the regular season the rest of the way for the Bills. It is taking advantage of, more than likely, winning its 5th consecutive AFC East divisional crown and doing something of matter with it, of reaching the AFC Championship game, of winning said AFC crown and playing in a Super Bowl at long last. Because, Joe, in the 4 years that Buffalo has won an AFC East divisional crown entering this season, they have been bounced from the postseason in 3 straight years in the divisional round, and in 3 of the 4, the team that handed them the exit from the playoffs, these Kansas City Chiefs. And the Bills have beaten the Chiefs in each of the last 3 regular seasons to only come up short when it mattered most once again in the playoffs. So I think it's smart for Buffalo to downplay the significance of this game. Not that they're like, hey, we can lose, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be a great game. But Buffalo knows what lies ahead, and it's really not this matchup in Week 11.
It's not, and that's the other question that I've had all week, Ben, is when you think about it, is how much are we really going to get from these 2 teams? Like, what is Andy Reid really going to open up the playbook and going to make this some? These 2 teams know each other. They're not going to do anything over the top in Week 11 to try and win this game. That's not the end-all, be-all for either of these teams, Ben. So I'm kind of with you. I think an under is in play. And do not be shocked. And keep an eye on the injury report, by the way. A lot of Bills players, some concerns on who's going and who's not going today. So that could also determine what happens to this line, Ben, once we get a clearer picture.
Joe, I think it's shocking to see 46.5 as the total for a game between the Bills and the Chiefs. And the under has the juice right now. But you would think that KC's defense, which is leading the charge to this perfect 9-0 start, is really the difference. Quickly, let's show the quarterback props entering this game. Josh Allen had played such clean football. First 7 games of the year, had not thrown a pick. Now a pick in 3 straight, 4 INTs in that 3-game span. Meanwhile, Mahomes had thrown an interception in the first 7 games for Kansas City, has not thrown a pick in the last 2 to 4 touchdown passes. Plenty more from an awesome Sunday next.
right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all song, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The Seahawks, I expected a bounce back after that poor performance against Buffalo the week before. They took the Rams right down to the wire.
The Cardinals are the top spot at the moment. That's not going to hold. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not going to win this division, but they are 5-4. After that, you've got the Rams, the Niners, each 4-4. The Niners, God willing, man. I mean, if Christian McCaffrey ever does come back.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben.
Like, that's what your grandma would do when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
What began on a Thursday to kick off week number 11 of this NFL season continues on Sunday. Marquee matchups, incredibly significant games in divisional duels that will decide who earns the top spot in a division at the end of week 11. The Eagles now a game and a half in front of the Commanders after a home victory in Philadelphia on Thursday and now improving to 8-2. Elsewhere in the Commonwealth, the Pittsburgh Steelers hoping for the same on Sunday in the AFC North battle for that top spot against the Baltimore Ravens. However, unlike what we saw in Philly in the Steel City, the home team is not favored. In fact, the Flock a full field goal favorite. That incredibly significant number of 3 on the road in Pittsburgh. 48.5 the total for a Ravens and Steelers game. What happened to the game I love? But the field goal in terms of that favored side for Baltimore, Joe, let's start there. Is the number 2 large? Is the correct team favored? Or do you feel it is fitting for what we will see on Sunday?
So a couple of things. Got a lot of trends working in this game. And we know that the underdog always covers this game. Always. In all likelihood, will win out. It's been like that forever. The numbers are ridiculous. You got Tomlin at home as an underdog, is outside of the Ravens is absurd. But now his battles with Harbaugh over the years, whoever is the underdog in this series usually ends up not only covering but winning outright here. We also have a Ravens team that is 9-1 to the over, Ben. Their games average 57 points. That's 2.5 more than any other team right now in the NFL. They are a scoring machine. They can score 30 on everyone. And at the same time, with that secondary, guess what they'll give up? 30 to everyone that they play. And Pittsburgh has been absolutely great. I will give it to Russell Wilson. I'll give it to Arthur Smith. Maybe that is the biggest surprise to me so far, Ben, is that Arthur Smith actually created some balance with this offense, didn't make it all about the running game, and the ability to be able to stretch the field with Pickens. This game is a dead over. There is no way I'm sweating out an under with Ravens Pittsburgh, and it feels crazy to say that in November.
It does. The Baltimore Ravens have gone over in 9 of 10 games, as Joe mentioned. And he mentioned also the average margin. They are going over the expected outcome by 9.3 points per game. So, again, it's not like this is Navy or Army in this college football season where the totals were 37.5 and they're scoring 45 points to begin. The Ravens have played in games, including a short week Thursday night game last week that featured a total of 52.5, and it ended with a combined 69 nice points. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers, when you look at what Russell Wilson has done in his 3 starts in a Steelers uniform, of course, they have won all 3. They have gone over in all 3. They have gone over in 4 consecutive games. This, the highest total of the year, though, for Pittsburgh, which already goes over the highest total of their season, which was last week, 45.5 against the Commanders, and it was nearly over by double digits. Joe, to your point just quickly about the underdog in this matchup, we shared the trend yesterday, courtesy of Stuckey. Maybe some of you know him from social media, doing some work with the Action Network, I do believe. That in this matchup, and of course, John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin. Tomlin in the Steel City for 18 years now, Harbaugh in the Charm City for 17 seasons. Since Harbaugh arrived in Baltimore in 2008, when the Ravens have been a field goal favorite or more in a matchup against the bitter rivals that are the Steelers, they are 0-10-2 against the spread. Woo. They have never covered a number when laying at least a field goal. And the Steelers this year are perfect. 3-0 outright as an underdog. And yet, Joe, when you look at the numbers, Baltimore, despite trailing Pittsburgh by a half game in the division, is a minus 260 favorite to win the AFC North. Is that number slightly skewed if we expect the Steelers to be live on Sunday at home?
It absolutely is, Ben, because what is that number if they win this game? It ain't going to be that, and not even remotely close. Listen, 8-3-1 against the number as a home underdog since 2021 with teams that weren't half as good offensively as this one. They are live, Ben, at a good price.
And this starts the run for Pittsburgh that is incredibly difficult. All 6 of their AFC North divisional games start this week, and then to end out the year, they will play in Baltimore week number 16. Hour number 2 next.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.